Welcome to TYT Sports. Francis Maxwell here, recapping the Premier League with our favourite correspondent coming on, the True Geordie, coming on to talk to us. Thanks again for joining us, Brian. It's really a pleasure to have you on.
It's a pleasure to be on, mate. Thanks for having us on.
Absolutely. So we're just going to dive straight into it. Everyone knows that me and you, the dynamic duo, we basically waste no shit talking on, getting into the major details of the Premier League. And the first thing to talk about is Arsenal and Chelsea, worlds apart, I think. What do you think?
Well, I think it sort of says a lot about Arsene Wenger, the fact that he's really let Mourinho beat him already before the teams even went out. For me, Arsene Wenger was a beaten man. It really reminded us, as a Newcastle fan, of Kevin Keegan and Alex Ferguson back in the 90s. Obviously, Kevin Keegan just lost his mind completely. And Arsene Wenger hasn't completely went, but the fact that a man who was known as the professor and non-confrontational, and now he's getting to the point where he's pushing and shoving like two old grannies with the handbags out. Doesn't even shake his hand at the end of the game, and neither did Mourinho. I'm not saying Mourinho was a little wind-up merchant, but what you do with the wind-up merchant is you don't give them the response they want, and Wenger is just played right into his hands, and unfortunately his team did the exact same thing. Yeah,
that's what we were just talking about it before. Honestly, I've never seen anything less masculine in my whole life than Arsene Wenger trying to push Jose Mourinho about that. And then you're right, it shows how much Mourinho just got underneath his skin. Mourinho is a tactical genius. He knows what to do on the field, and he knows what works off the field. He used to do it with Alex Ferguson as much, but Ferguson, as you said, would try and respond to in the normal way and just let his team do the talking. But the thing is with Wenger is he can't do that because his team are not strong enough. I think this really just proved how, as I said, how worlds apart Chelsea are from Arsenal, but not only just Arsenal. I think Chelsea at this moment are at the pinnacle of this league, not only because the way they've been playing, but this is something I just can't see moving. I can't see anyone breaking down Chelsea, especially their defensive formation, the way they hold themselves at the back. I thought John Terry was phenomenal, got in front of everything, and it's kind of surprising because I thought John Terry was going downhill a little bit, but I just think that as a team, as a whole, they've got themselves figured out early, which is crucial. I mean, you don't want them to peak too early, to be honest, but I think Chelsea, they just look frightening.
Well, when you look at Arsenal, mate, it says a lot about Arsenal because we all know Arsenal is playing open, expansive football, fluid passing, movement, passing in triangles, like a sort of poor man's Barcelona for many years. And now when you look at them now, they're going to Stamford Bridge to set the stall out to try and stifle Chelsea. They're trying to stop football from being played. That blew my mind. I was like, wow, Arsenal are trying not to get beat too badly, whereas back in the day, obviously, Arsenal would come to Stamford Bridge to try and win the games. Now they're just trying not to lose too badly. They're pulling a sort of Sam Allardyce style tactic, a little bit more polished, obviously, but they're trying not to lose. That's the first and foremost. And I think, obviously, the 6-0 hammering last season, when Chelsea weren't as good as what they are this season, was definitely in the back of their mind. They came to Stamford Bridge to try and stop them from playing. And unfortunately for them, as good a job as they did, because Arsenal did a fairly decent job in shutting down Chelsea, just constantly all over them, trying to stop them from playing. People like Eden Hazard and Diego Costa are just a cut above what Arsenal have got right now.
And do you know who I was even more impressed with, who got a standing ovation from the Chelsea fans, was Oscar. You see this little this player who's got so much flair and he's got so much ability going forward, and then you see him crunching people at the edge of the box. I mean, getting stuck in, throwing himself in front of every tackle. He had that mentality. It's obviously Mourinho's obviously took him aside and went, "Here, son, you're a good player. There's no doubt about it. But if you're going to play in my team, you need to work your arse off. You need to get into the box. You need to also get back and defend at the edge of the box." And the kid was flying into tackles left, right, and centre, blocking every single attack that Arsenal had outside the box. And he encompassed what Chelsea have: this mentality, this bit between their teeth that they're not going to take anything, no matter who you are. If you come to Stamford Bridge, if you have got this mentality as a free-flowing football team, as you said, like a poor man's Barcelona, they're not going to give you an inch of space. And it just proved that Chelsea they're furious this season. They know that Mourinho is obviously, his ego is like that. I never won it my first season back. I wanted to win it my first season back. This is the season we're going to take it.
Well, one thing I will say, mate, is that if you look at the business Jose Mourinho did, everything was sewn up before the summer even began almost. He had all these signings done and dusted before the World Cup even started. And that gives you a massive advantage over every other team to get your team organised, used to each other. So when the Premier League started, they had like a 3-month jump on everybody else. And you look at Oscar, I had me doubts about Oscar at the end of last season. For me, he was a bit feeble. He wasn't really putting the challenges in. He was a passenger at times. And a bit like what Mesut Ozil has been at the start of this season. But there's the difference between a Jose Mourinho and an Arsene Wenger. He's transforming Oscar, whereas you look at Ozil, the lad's just floundering for me.
Yeah, there was a point in the game that he went to control it on the side. I don't know if you've seen it on the left side, and he did what I would do on a Sunday morning after a night out on a Saturday. Is I tried to put my foot in the ball and I missed it, and he just looks down and you could just see himself. He's just like, oh fuck this. There's just no way. Fuck this. I'm out. Get me off. He just kind of looked as if to say, someone get me off. And the thing is, I feel bad because Ozil, when you know he's got the quality like that, as you've seen him when he plays against Aston Villa and he's in form against these teams, he looks good. He brings the ball around, but then you come up against a Chelsea who are just not going to give you an inch of space, and you've got quality around them to try and say. I think the commentator I was watching the game here in the US said that Wenger was so confident in Mesut Ozil that he didn't want to go back in for a Fabregas. And you look at that there, Fabregas gets 3 inches of space, head up, bang, floats a ball into the perfect area for Diego Costa. It's a goal, whereas Ozil's floundering around, as you said. It's just a difference in quality.
Well, when you look at Mesut Ozil, mate, for me, I look at the lad, and yes, he's got ability with the ball at his feet, but the Premier League, that's not enough. You need to have the speed, the pace, and the power. Now, Gareth Bale is a classic example of a player who really was lacking those things as a youngster, trained himself up, and then became one of the best players in world football. Now, if Mesut Ozil doesn't do the same thing, yes, he's going to always shine against Aston Villa, but in games like Chelsea, he's going to be a fucking passenger, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Now, for me, before the game, I'm thinking, all right, Mesut Ozil's playing. I expected that he play as a number 10. He didn't even play as a number 10. He was really floating all over the shop. For me, Oxlade-Chamberlain was the crystal clear answer of who you play. You're obviously not going to have a lot of the ball against Chelsea. So when you do get the ball, you want two things. Well, you want pace. Simple as that. Alexis Sanchez, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Danny Welbeck, all going forward with pace could really give you an option on the counter-attack. Mesut Ozil, I mean, what's he going to do on the counter-attack? He's just not quick enough for me. Yeah. Yes, when you've got a lot of the ball, he's the answer. But without the ball, he's not the man for me.
Exactly. I completely agree. And then let's put a point on I know one of your favourites, as you said on Twitter, Diego fucking Costa. He starts his run. He's offside. He looks disinterested. He's walking back. The game is just suddenly, it's in Chelsea's half. They win it in the middle of the box, and as soon as that ball transitions, you just see him. He floats into an onside position and then just darts in between Mertesacker and Koscielny. So this is the thing. I talked about it in our Champions League review on Arsenal. Yes, they had a good job against Galatasaray, but my God, I think me and a couple of the guys in the office here could have defended better than Galatasaray did against Arsenal. So it wasn't a good example of a team. But I think that Mertesacker and Koscielny, although they had a good game in that Champions League, they're not in the same wavelength. They're both sitting exactly aligned. And if you've got Diego Costa and you're as slow as Mertesacker, you need to be staggered. You need to have the point where you can try and at least cover up for your lack of pace. So Costa floats in, and then just as before even Fabregas hits it, he's looked in behind, and he's in there, and he just goes through, shrugs it off, puts it over the top. I mean, what did you think about that? The guy is just sublime.
Well, before he came to the Premier League, a lot of people were saying he's the next Torres, he's the next Shevchenko. Yeah. And one thing I said to those doubters was, there's not a doubt in my mind he's not one of those players, because of one thing and one thing only. It's not because he's that quick, it's not because he's that strong, he's not amazing at shooting, but his runs are some of the most intelligent runs I've seen in the Premier League history. I'm talking Van Nistelrooy, as good as that, if not better at times than Van Nistelrooy. And that's saying something, because he was one of the best strikers I've ever seen. Yeah. So I knew he would do well, but even I've been surprised. I mean, he's a goal machine. Yes, he's got the strength. Yes, he's got the pace. And it didn't surprise us. I mean, he's one-on-one with the keeper. Other people might panic him. Nah, just flicks it over the top of him like it's a Sunday league game, and he did it in his sleep last night.
Yeah. Thanks again for joining us here, Brian Davis, aka the True Geordie. Make sure to check out his channel. Fantastic 50,000 subscribers. Congratulations on that. You're catching up to us here on TYT Sports, and we love having you on here. Make sure to tune in every Monday at TYT Sports. Will bring you me and the True Geordie are going to recap the Premier League's action. Thanks again.